You're listening to
They're going to call it a hard foul. They're going to call it a hard foul.
offering in-depth analysis on all things Boston Celtics with your hosts, Jim and Mike Quigley.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Hard Foul Podcast with your host tonight, just Mike Quigley. As Jimmy and I are trying to get on the pod more often to share our thoughts on the Celtics, he and I are only able to meet every once in a while, so this will allow for more feedback on how we think the team is doing, and for our valued listeners to get more content. For those of you listening all over the globe in Australia, to Connecticut, to California, to here in Massachusetts and New Hampshire, we appreciate you listening to talk Celtics basketball. It's been an enjoyable start to the season, obviously. I know Jimmy did a pod on his own episode on the Washington Wizards, so I don't have much to say about that game. Obviously, Jordan Poole came out in the first quarter looking like Steph Curry. And then the Celtics took over, and it was a blowout. I do want to give the Wizards credit. They did play hard. They're just a really bad team with a lot of young players who can't compete. So tonight I really want to focus on these last two games and my thoughts on this team, which are – it's hard to break down a team that's so deep and playing so well. But I'll do my best to give some insight and even some, not concerns, but things that I think can be addressed in the short term that isn't great basketball that we've seen from the Celtics. So starting with tonight, similar to the last two wins over the Pistons and the Wizards, the Bucks came to play just like the Pistons and the Wizards did. They showed up. They defended the three-point line as best they could. They had perimeter defenders out on the Celtics. Let me just do an update here on my computer so it'll leave me alone. So we don't have those noises coming in during the pod. But as I was saying, they showed up to play. They were defending hard. They were attacking the paint. They were getting to the foul line. Whether there was help from Tony Brothers or actually earning it is debatable. But overall, the Bucks came to play. Their three-point shooting wasn't good tonight, but I thought they put out a valiant effort. And obviously, Payton Pritchard was a big difference in tonight, hitting a lot of threes. His third straight games with five more three-point makes. I think he hit 7 or 8 tonight. He was the second leading scorer as Brown finally caught up to him at the end of the game. A real spark off the bench from him. His teammates in the first half coming off the bench were not good. Jordan Walsh ended the game really well, but he did not have a good first half. And overall, the Celtics offense in the first half of that game really not great. Some bad tendencies that carried over from Detroit, where the ball movement really, they weren't making the extra pass. They were getting open threes, but they were better looks that they were passing up, and guys were taking the shot. And so I think that impacted their poor three-point shooting in the first half, and the ball was sticking, specifically with Tatum and Brown. When they had it, there was a lot of ISO basketball in that first half that led to some turnovers, led to some bad shots. And even when the Celtics had open looks, particularly in the first quarter, it was flat. The shots weren't long, they were short. So it was an indication that it was going to be a poor shooting night from the team. And luckily, again, Payton Pritchard bailed them out, and then Holiday and Derek White going off in the second half. And obviously Al Horford had a good shooting game, but it was flat to start. And Milwaukee was really getting what they wanted in the paint. Giannis played a great game. Damian Lillard scoring 30-some-odd points on just 14 to 16 shots. So I thought Milwaukee played a really good first half. They were finding Brook Lopez on matchups against guys who typically can cover bigs. So Drew Holiday, Derek White typically can cover a center, but Brook Lopez is a different beast because of his long arms, and he was able to get some good looks at the hoop. And so it was a tight game in the first half. Milwaukee was winning. And then that third quarter, you just saw Jaylen Brown put his head down and really get to the basket and kind of – and I really thought that impacted Milwaukee's play. They looked a little tired. They were switching different guys on the Brown. That got other guys open. Then you see Milwaukee go on a big run in the middle of the third quarter. and the Celtics responded with Derek White just hitting some, super confident threes, and that's something that's really stood out this season. Is White's always been a great player, but he's playing with a different swagger and confidence this year. Other than blocking shots on the defensive end, his offensive game has even improved more as he's getting that 3-point shot up really quick. He's taking more of them. He's shooting them with guys in his face. He's doing step back threes. He's getting to the paint, still hitting his floater. So again, the Celtics just throw so much at you. You go on a run, and then Drew Holiday scores 8 straight points. Meanwhile, Jason Tatum only has 13, and he's 5 for 13 from the field or whatever he was, and he can't get to the free throw line because Tony Brothers hates him, and the refs were just not going to allow Tatum to go to the line, and they were going to call every foul on him. So it's going to be one of those nights. And one adjustment that I really liked from Tatum in the second half, particularly the fourth quarter, is he was getting his teammates involved. He had 3 assists in the fourth quarter, I think 4 for the game. But going into that fourth quarter, in the last 7 quarters, going back to Detroit, he only had 1 assist. And that's a guy still averaging 6 assists a game coming into tonight. And so when he's doing that, when he's getting guys involved, it makes everything else better. I truly believe it helps his offensive game. And you saw him hit Al Horford for a 3. He hit Drew Holiday for a 3 in that fourth quarter. And then, of course, that drive to the hoop where he hit Al Horford going to the basket, a Magic Johnson-esque pass. So I thought that was a great adjustment for him. Obviously, Jaylen Brown going off in the second half, finding his shot. Prior to Brown going off in the second half, he had missed 21 of his last 25 field goal attempts, and he was 6 of 24 shooting the ball against Detroit. So his 3-point shot is off, but he found his rhythm tonight against Milwaukee in the third and fourth quarter that hopefully will carry over into this road trip. So the good for the Celtics, this is a great win. Quite honestly, I think it's a great win. I don't care that Milwaukee was coming in on the second night of a back-to-back. They came ready to play. They played well. And despite playing well, they still lost by double figures because the Celtics matched that intensity. And they have too much talent to stay with. So what's so impressive about the Celtics team is teams are showing up to play them. They're playing really, really hard. And it doesn't matter. Because the Celtics are willing to match that intensity and bring it, whether it's Jordan Walsh in the second half tonight making some big plays, Derek White making some huge defensive plays, Drew Holiday making huge defensive plays tonight, whether it's taking a charge against Giannis, blocking a shot. They're just there. Extra possessions with the offensive rebound. When you have the talent that they have and you're as deep as they are and they're still willing to play this hard after winning a championship, to me, that's a really good sign of things to come. And my concern with the Celtics, it's really hard to nitpick, but I'm gonna. They're giving up way too many points in the paint. Against Detroit, they were struggling with rim runner, with Durant. They were struggling with guys who like to push you around and go after offensive rebounds like Portis and Stewart. Stewart from Detroit, obviously, and Portis tonight. And just in general, guards getting to the paint. They're having a tough time. That's something they struggled against last year, too. Quicker guards who like to go to the paint. So we saw Jordan Ivey and Cade Cunningham take advantage of that a couple nights ago. And tonight it was obviously Giannis getting there and Brook Lopez beating them up inside. But they got to fix that paint defense. We saw some of it in Washington, too. Washington was able to get a lot of buckets in the paint. So they're defending the 3-point line well, which is an MO of this team and obviously a really important stat in the NBA. But I want to keep an eye on that interior defense without Porzingis, because when they're not shooting well, like tonight, that can keep teams in the game. We got Milwaukee. It's not the second night of a back-to-back. Maybe tonight's a little bit closer, right? And my other concern, and this is a small one, but since the midway point of the third quarter against Detroit, to pretty much the fourth quarter, probably the midway point of the fourth quarter of this game tonight, the ball was sticking. It was a lot of ISO offense. And if they weren't running ISO offense and they weren't moving the ball, they weren't making that extra pass. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples. In the first half, Tatum took a three where he was on the floor with Pritchard. Pritchard already made 4 threes, and he's in the corner wide open. So Tatum was open. Ended up being a contested three, but he had that one more pass to the corner that would have been Pritchard right there to drill that shot. That's a better look, right? And then twice with Jordan Walsh. And I don't want to beat Jordan Walsh up, but Jordan Walsh had 2 open threes. They ended up being slightly contested in the first half. Both instances, Jason Tatum was wide open. It was just one more pass to him, which would have been a better three. And typically when the Celtics are locked in, that's happening. And that's why they hit, 17 of 33s. And everybody's like, whoa, why are they such a good shooting team? Because they're making that extra pass and making that extra effort. And we saw a lot of it in Detroit. And with the ball sticking with Tatum and Brown, we saw the turnovers, quite a bit of them tonight. And then obviously during Detroit's big run, where they actually took the lead last night, a couple nights ago, with a lot of bad offense by the Celtics that impacted their defense. They allowed it to impact their defense, and that interior paint wasn't being covered. And Detroit ended up scoring over 50 points inside, but the offense, the ball was sticking with Tatum and Brown. It wasn't moving. Both of them only had 1 assist to end the game. And to me, that's always an indication of they're looking too much for theirs and they're not getting their teammates involved. And those extra passes aren't being made when the Celtics are in the rhythm of their offense. And you saw a lot of that tonight up until the fourth quarter with Tatum moving the ball a little bit quicker and not letting it stick. And by stick, it's kind of dribbling the clock out a little bit, driving to the basket with your head down. One adjustment that Doc didn't make tonight that I think I would have made against the Celtics in that third and fourth quarter is when Brown was going to the basket with his head down. He was beating you up. He was getting to the paint and getting whatever he wants. I would have threw 2 guys at him, and I would have tested it out to see if he was going to pass to the open 3-point shooter. Last year he would. Last year he would stack up the assist when that's happening. This year, I haven't seen a lot of that from Brown. So would some of those old habits come back where if I throw a second guy at him, he's dribbling the ball off his foot, he's forcing up a bad shot, it's leading to fast break points for my team. I would start to do that against Tatum and Brown. If I see early in the game they're not looking for their teammates and looking for their offense, that's the adjustment I would make. And another interesting adjustment that Mazzulla has made that's been good for Tatum's scoring, but I think has impacted Brown's shooting, and I'd like to keep an eye on it, is the Celtics are going to Tatum early in the first quarter. And throughout the first quarter of these games, he's staying on the court for pretty much the entire first quarter, and they're running their offense through him. Last couple of years, that's been Jaylen Brown. He's been probably their best first quarter shooter for 3 or 4 years now. And now we're switching that up to Tatum and having Brown run the offense in the second quarter. I just want to keep an eye on, is that impacting Brown's rhythm? And then does that impact the way the Celtics play, where they become an ISO team? Because when they're moving the ball, they're unbeatable. But when they're ISO ball, that's when you start to give teams a chance, because your supporting cast of all-star players, Derek White, Drew Holiday, Al Horford, they're not getting the open looks that they're used to, or they're not getting them in rhythm because your superstars are looking to get theirs. And so I just know they won a championship last year, and a big part of that was because of Tatum's passing and his defense, and obviously his scoring too, but his passing really set up the rhythm of the offense. And a big part of that was getting the ball to Jaylen Brown, who then would say, hey, time for you to take over. Second and third quarter was Tatum time, and then fourth quarter, by the end of the year, became Jaylen Brown time. But I think that was a fluke. But overall, I think you get my point that I'm interested to see how this is going to work out with Tatum being the guy they go to in the first quarter. They're 4-0 right now. It's working out great. Let's just see what the offense looks like as we continue to do this long term. And so those are my thoughts on the Celtics past couple of games. Sorry, my computer. hopefully Jimmy can fix that. But my computer keeps interrupting me here. So those are my thoughts on the Celtics past couple of games. I do want to just say that the way they closed out the Detroit game was incredible. I know they were playing a bad team, but to me, that's a great win. To be down 6 and then to win by 6, just really all of them making plays down the stretch. Derek White blocking, Cade Cunningham going to the basket trying to dunk it, Jason Tatum getting his hoops. It was just a great win. It's like they finally woke up with 2.5 minutes left after sleeping throughout the entire third quarter and most of the second quarter, blowing a 24-point lead to a team that was hungry, a young team that played really hard. Jordan Ivey and Cade Cunningham and Duran were all playing at a high level. Just a tremendous victory in my mind for early in the season to show, yes, we're the Celtics. We're the same team that closed out Indiana and won all those close games. We're going to close you out tonight. Similar thing happened today against Milwaukee. Milwaukee was trying to Carroll hit a big 3, cut it to like 8 or 6, step back 3. Celtics called a timeout and just came back and dominated the rest of the game. Again, the ability to close as a team, playing basketball the right way at the end of these games in the fourth quarter, that really alleviates my concern. But to have a podcast, I have to have some concerns to talk about the Celtics offense. And I also just want to talk about the poor coaching. JD Bickerstaff, he is not a good coach. Taking out Malik Beasley after he hit his 5th 3 and putting in, I forget who he put in, Tim Hardaway Jr. To really finish that game up until like the last 20 seconds where he put Beasley back in, who came in and hit another 3, by the way. But just a huge mistake because Beasley was stretching the floor. He was defending at a high level. He was getting up in guys, and he's not a great defender, but he was up covering guys beyond the 3-point line. He was bought into this game. I just don't understand that decision. He made wild decisions like that in Cleveland last year in the playoffs against the Celtics. I don't think he played Morris until game 5 last year in Cleveland, and Morris went off in that game and was like, you had this scorer the whole time. Your team couldn't score without Mitchell, and Garland was struggling, and you didn't play this guy. So it's a real poor coaching decision, I think, by Bickerstaff. He was more into complaining about the refs, and you got a guy, Malik Beasley, going off. I think would he lead the league in NBA 3-point makes last year? He's right up there. What are you doing with the way Ivy and Cunningham were driving to the hoop? That was your key to victory to beat the Celtics, is to have that guy keep shooting 3s. But overall, still, it was a great close by the Celtics. And I thought Doc tonight, some of the defensive decisions he made were interesting too. Again, just allowing Jaylen Brown to drive to the basket and get whatever he wants over and over and over again in that second half. And to not leave shooters. I would have tried it once or twice. I would have threw 2 guys at him to just test it, to see, are you going to pass or not? But he didn't. So looking forward, Jimmy and I will be doing a pod together, hopefully tomorrow or Wednesday, to kind of break down these 2 games together and then talk about the upcoming road trip. I do think it's going to be an entertaining road trip. They lost in Charlotte last year. Charlotte always seems to play well against Boston. Unfortunately, Mark Williams is still hurt. That's a guy that really beats up Boston. Bridges, who's a piece of shit, but he still plays really good when he plays the Celtics. And then Atlanta. We blew a 30-point lead down there last year. So let's see how that goes. And, of course, Wednesday night, Eastern Conference Finals matchup, rematch against the Indiana Pacers, who have not been good this season, but they're going to play well at home against Boston. So we're going to see another good game. And are the Celtics going to be 8-0? Let's see. So excited for that, and really excited to see the way Payton Pritchard's playing, and hopefully we get Hauser back soon. So with that, folks, Payton Pritchard rubs on his nipples. Celtics win.